explanation of history, chapter number 5, When People Rebel, 1857 and after. Till this particular chapter, we had learned how the Britishers were trying all these strategies to bring India under control. And while they were doing so, they did hurt the sentiments of the Indians, because they were taking everything away from them under duress. Nobody was willing to do it because they emerged as the most supreme power, because India had a lot of problems within itself. So everybody was forced to give up in front of them. So if you're forced to do something, you are unhappy about it. Let's see in different categories how Britishers affected the lives of these people, though we had done a little bit in detailing. But in general, now let's see how did they affect and what caused the rebel. Rebel means to revolt, to fight back. So let's take the first category. How did the kings get affected because of the British policies? The kings used to enjoy a lot of attention from the people because they were the supreme authority of their particular kingdom. They used to collect revenues from there and enjoy their life. The only job would be to take care of the administration of the kingdom and to protect the kingdom from the attack of the outsiders. Now, firstly, the Britishers disbanded the army slowly. What do you mean by disbanded? A single unit of army is a single unit of soldiers. Slowly, they broke them into pieces till when the army came to an end. At the end, they told that you cannot maintain an army at all. The revenue collection which was being done by the king was going into the pockets of the Britishers now. Various methods, like I would give you protection, you give me the revenue. If you are under my care, under my protection, you give me the revenue, I will give you protection. That was the treaty of the Britishers. That's how they struck a balance in taking the revenue from us only and then trading with us only. Most of them were losing their powers. The hold over the kingdom had gone. The kings were no more the kings in actual meaning. They had just become a dummy. Certain examples are also there. Rani Lakshmibai did not have a legal heir. So what did she do? She adopted her son. So because of doctrine of lapse which I had taught, the Britishers said that an adopted son will not be given the right to the kingdom. That was one case. Nana Sahib was also the adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao. He asked for pension after the death of the Peshwa. He was not given pension because he was again the adopted son. We take the example of Mughal dynasty. Mughal dynasty was under the radar of the Britishers. The Britishers wanted the Mughal dynasty to come to an end because they were the people who had brought maximum of India under their control. So when Bahadur Shah Zafar was in reign, he was in power. So the Britishers, Lord Dalhousie, he was the viceroy then. So he told Bahadur Shah Zafar to leave Red Fort, which was actually his home. He was a king. He used to rule from there. So he was told to move away from there and find another residence. Like he couldn't be allowed to sit over there in the Red Fort because the supremacy had to be challenged. Lord Canning, when he came, he did one more thing. He said that Bahadur Shah Zafar is the last Mughal emperor. He declared. Why all this? Because the Britishers wanted to prove their supremacy in India. They knew that they were the superpower. After Bahadur Shah Zafar, his sons were no more called the kings or the Nawabs. They were called only the princes. That too only a tag, a namesake tag. And the little property what they had, they were living with. Awadh again was a place which was taken away by the Britishers under the category of misgovernment. Britishers forced themselves to take over that particular kingdom because the reasoning they gave to the king was that the king was sent to exile. He was deported and The Britishers' explanation as to taking away Awadh was that particular kingdom's administration was improper. That's why the Britishers took over that particular kingdom. So these were the various ways in which the entire wrath of the British fell upon the kings. So the peasants also were not left untouched. Peasants are the people who are working in the fields, agriculture, all related to agriculture. Now the peasants were told to give high rate of taxes. Taxes were being levied on them. To cultivate their own land, they had to first give a little bit of amount of tax to the king, but now that had increased. The revenue collection system was very rigid. That means it was not flexible at all, and it was not in the favor of the peasants at all. So because of this, because the taxation policy was so tough, they started taking loans from whom? The moneylenders. The moneylenders had their own gala time, and they were taking away the lands when the peasants failed to return the money. This is how peasants were exploited at that time, and they also were very, very unhappy. The last sector comes the sepoys. Now, there were certain people from India who worked as soldiers for the British Army. Were they happy? No. They weren't happy with the pay scale what they were getting. They were not happy with the services what the British Army was providing them. They were not happy with the kind of treatment met with them. When it came to the British soldiers and the Indian soldiers, there was a very vast gap in the pay scale also and the way they were treated. So if you are humiliated, you would feel very, very bad. Not only this, now the Indians had one superstition in their mind, I would say literally superstition. You and I would laugh at it when I would tell you this, but they had this notion in their mind that if the British would send them outside India, that too via sea route, then the Indian soldiers were of the notion or of the idea that they would lose their religion. I don't know what was the triggering of this idea in their mind, but they were of this opinion that if they would go outside India to represent British and fight anywhere outside India and they had to take the sea route, then they would lose their religion. So they had to go to Burma to fight, but they revolted saying that we won't go by sea route. Though they were okay with going by land route. So the Britishers said that this is not going to take place, this is not going to be entertained. So 1856, the Britishers, what did they do? They brought in a law saying that if an Indian would join the British Army, no matter where he is deployed by the British, they have to go. Now, if you don't have any source of income, you would work for the British Army, but you are unhappy with whatever is happening with you. They thought everywhere the sentiments are being hurt. In the countryside also, in the village also, whatever was happening with the peasants also annoyed the sepoys because their own people were living in the villages, their own relatives, friends, they were all living in the villages. So whatever was happening in the villages side also was not entertaining the soldiers. So what happens further when so much of anger is there lying within the heart of the people? No category of the people was left undisturbed. Everybody was pestered some or the other way. What happens next? The question was whether the Britishers stopped after doing all this damage to the various categories of people living in India. No. No, Britishers had a different lifestyle, had different customs, they had a different education, they had different beliefs. Everything was different from us. Indian society was very orthodox. Very, I would say, their vision of society was very narrow. They were not broad-minded at all. Where the man was the superior in the family and the women were considered to be inferior to the man. Now, because the women were considered inferior, they had certain customs which were very, I would say, annoying when you listen to it right now. You would feel how were women living at that time in that particular kind of atmosphere. Britishers did do something good also, because it was their custom to do it that way. So there was one system called sati. Okay, sati means, the custom sati, the word sati meant that if some woman's husband died, then the woman would have to sit on the pyre of the dead husband, and she was also to be burnt alive with the dead body of the husband. That was one custom which was very ruthless. A person who is dead, whose body has no life, feel no pain. You burn that dead body, you cremate it, no effect. But a live person who has to sit on the pyre, pyre होते हो बेटे लकड़ियाँ जिस पे रखते हैं, लकड़ियों पे रखते हैं body पे, that's called pyre. So you sit on the husband's pyre and get burnt alive just because you lost your husband. It was not under your control anyway. Anyway, it was not under your control. You couldn't have made him live longer. You couldn't have killed him or murdered him. So, because of no rhyme or reason, these things, these orthodox thinking led to certain customs which were very ruthless. Moreover, there was one more custom that if you would lose your husband, you couldn't get married at all. There were child marriages then. A child of say 2 years, 3 years got married, and say supposedly her husband died. May the husband be like, take for example 8 years. The boy, some snake came and bit him and the boy died. Now the child who was 2 years old, till she will be alive, has to live the life of a widow. Then widow's life was very miserable. They had to shave off their heads. They had to live in one small dingy room. They couldn't eat any delicacies. They had to cook for themselves in one very dark room, away from the actual family. The white attire, they had to cover their faces. They were considered bad omens. Like if anybody looking at the face of a woman, of a widow, they would be under the impression that something bad is going to come upon us. So these customs were challenged by the British. They abolished the sati system and they promoted the remarriage of the widows. Now, something which has been being lived since ages wouldn't stop with a sudden pause button. So that hurt the sentiment of the Indian society again, that the British was intervening in the customs and the traditions of the society. This is what the British did. And moreover, now this will be a funny part. British promoted English languages education because their means of communication was English only. You and I also communicate in English now because it's the worldwide accepted language, so everybody needs to know it. That's why you and I are communicating. But then they had made it a little bit, facilitation was done so that they promote the English language. Again, a question mark on the languages which were there in the society. They thought that this would be neglected. They brought in Christian missionaries. They made laws, the British made laws to allow Christian missionaries to work smoothly. Missionaries are they are Christian, the congregation, this thing will come, and then churches will be built, they pray, and then they made laws for conversion also to be easier. Conversion means if you are a Hindu or a Muslim, you can get converted into Christian. The laws were made easier so that the protest would be less. Because it is a law, then you can take up another religion. You can quit yours and take up another religion. Now, how did they do this? If you would become a Christian, you can inherit the property of the ancestors very easily. That was the law. So definitely, if you want your ancestors' property not to be taken away by the British and you want it, so the Indians thought it is quite easier to take away the property by becoming a Christian. So here they heard the values of the religion, and the Indian community thought that they are posing a threat to the religious ways, customs and traditions also. So would anybody keep quiet? No. The sepoys, the people had secret meetings. Everybody under the table knew that something is going to happen, something is being planned. Even the Britishers knew, but every now and then until a spark would be ignited, but they wouldn't know that this is going to happen. Slowly, they started conducting meetings, exchanging each other's thoughts. They were discussing what was happening in their own country, in their own area. And slowly, they came up with ideas how to revolt against the British.